Nobody planned to spark one of the most obsessive collecting hobbies in human history. It started as a fix for a completely different problem, a structural one. In the 1870s, American machine-rolled cigarettes were fragile. Without a stiff inner lining, they arrived at shops crushed and bent. Tobacco companies needed a solution. A company called Allen & Ginter, based in Richmond, Virginia, had an idea. Slide a small stiff printed card into each pack to brace the cigarettes. It worked perfectly. These early cards were functional, almost disposable. But someone at Allen & Ginter noticed that customers were pulling the cards out of empty packs and keeping them. The company began printing illustrated cards in numbered series, sets of 25 or 50. If you wanted to complete the set, you had to keep buying cigarettes. The earliest Allen & Ginter series featured wrestlers, boxers, and marksmen, the celebrities of the athletic world in the 1880s. People genuinely wanted them. By the early 1880s, the cards featured actresses and stage performers. They became informally known as cigarette girls, printed in vivid color. They were mild scandal and high demand. James Buchanan Duke, a tobacco magnate from Durham, North Carolina, saw what Allen & Ginter were doing. His company, W. Duke Sons & Company, launched its own card series to compete. By 1886, tobacco companies across America were printing cards in competing series of dozens or hundreds. Ordinary people, men, women, and children, were collecting small rectangles of cardboard. American baseball was exploding in popularity at exactly the same moment. Tobacco companies responded quickly. Players like Cap Anson and King Kelly of the Chicago White Stockings appeared on cards. Children who could not buy cigarettes found another path. They begged older relatives for the cards inside the packs. The cards traveled from adults to children almost immediately. Tobacco companies printed free albums, booklets with labeled slots, one for each card in the set. You could see exactly which cards you were missing. It was one of the earliest engineered collecting systems in consumer history. British tobacco companies followed. Imperial Tobacco and its competitors launched their own series featuring cricketers, military heroes, and explorers. The cigarette card became a Victorian obsession on both sides of the Atlantic. In 1890, the major American tobacco companies merged into the American Tobacco Company Trust. Card production slowed, but the collecting habit had already taken root in millions of homes. Between 1909 and 1911, American Tobacco printed what collectors now call the Monster, the T206 set. It contained portraits of more than 500 professional baseball players. Among them was a card of Honus Wagner, the Pittsburgh Pirates shortstop and one of the finest players of his era. Wagner allegedly demanded his card be pulled from the set before wide distribution. The most commonly told reason is that Wagner objected to being associated with tobacco advertising. Only a small number of his cards survived. Today, those cards are the rarest and most valuable in existence. One Honus Wagner T206 sold in 2022 for over $7 million. A piece of cardboard originally printed to stiffen a cigarette pack had become the most valuable sports card in history. Other industries had already noticed. Candy and caramel companies began issuing their own baseball card series. Cracker Jack included cards inside their boxes beginning in 1914. In the United Kingdom, cigarette card production peaked in the 1920s and 30s. Sets covered everything from film stars to wild animals to foreign flags. Entire families organized around completing them. In America, a new vehicle emerged: bubble gum. The Goudy Gum Company launched a baseball card set in 1933, one card per penny pack of gum. Children could now collect without cigarettes. World War II disrupted everything. Paper and materials were rationed. Card printing nearly stopped entirely. An entire generation grew up with no new baseball cards to collect. After the war, two companies competed for the baseball card market. Bowman Gum launched cards in 1948. A candy company called Topps entered in 1951, eventually acquiring Bowman. In 1952, Topps released what became the benchmark modern card set, large, colorful, beautifully designed. One card inside that set would define the entire hobby for decades. That card belonged to Mickey Mantle, a 20-year-old center fielder for the New York Yankees. A high-grade copy of his 1952 Topps card sold at auction in 2022 for $12.6 million. For the next 3 decades, buying baseball cards was a childhood rite of passage in America. You opened packs, sorted, traded, and clothespined unwanted cards to bicycle spokes. Millions of Americans shared this exact ritual. In the 1980s, cards became serious investment. Price guides were published. Cards were professionally graded and sealed in plastic cases. The market treated childhood cardboard like a commodity exchange. Then manufacturers overproduced. In the late 1980s, hundreds of millions of cards flooded the market. Values collapsed. Entire warehouses of supposedly rare cards became worthless. In 1993, a mathematician named Richard Garfield designed a card game for a small Washington state publisher called Wizards of the Coast. He called it Magic: The Gathering. Magic was not purely collectible, it was a game. But players bought random booster packs to build their decks, and some cards were far more powerful than others. The modern trading card game was born. One Magic card, the Black Lotus, became the most coveted game piece in history. It was printed only in early limited sets. High-grade copies have sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Across the Pacific, a game designer named Satoshi Tajiri was developing a separate idea. As a child in rural Japan, he had collected insects. He wanted to recreate that feeling in a video game. That game became Pocket Monsters, Pokémon, released in Japan in 1996. A trading card game followed almost immediately, designed to work in tandem with the video games. Pokémon cards arrived in North America in 1998. Within months, schoolyards were in chaos. Children traded, hoarded, and occasionally fought over cards bearing names like Charizard and Pikachu. The holographic Charizard from the first English base set became the card every child needed. It was, objectively, a game piece. First edition copies in top condition now sell for 6 figures and beyond. By 1999, schools across the United States and United Kingdom had banned Pokémon cards outright. The trading and social dynamics they created were consuming entire school days. Pokémon became what analysts widely cite as the highest-grossing media franchise in history, ahead of Star Wars, ahead of Hello Kitty. By some estimates, over 45 billion Pokémon cards have been sold worldwide. Today, dozens of trading card games compete for players. Yu-Gi-Oh!, launched in Japan in 1999, Flesh and Blood, Disney Lorcana, and Magic: The Gathering, with tens of millions of active players globally. A profession grew around the cards themselves. Companies like PSA, Professional Sports Authenticator, grade individual cards on a scale of 1 to 10. A PSA 10 card can be worth many times its ungraded counterpart. During the global pandemic in 2020 and 2021, card collecting surged dramatically. Housebound adults rediscovered childhood collections. Sports card prices doubled, tripled, and sometimes multiplied tenfold within months. The 1952 Mantle crossed $12 million. The Honus Wagner crossed $7 million. A one-of-one Luka Doncic rookie Lagaman card sold for over $4 million. Cardboard had become a legitimate asset class. Psychologists point to the near-miss reward loop. You never know what is inside the next pack. The mechanism resembles a slot machine, but cards add what slots cannot: community, trade, and shared memory. Through digital alternatives, app-based card platforms, and NFT experiments, the physical card endures. There is something irreplaceable about the weight of cardboard in your hand and the flash of holographic foil under light. An 1870s cigarette pack stiffener grew into a multi-billion-dollar global industry spanning sports history, fantasy, and childhood wonder. Not by design, by accident, and then by obsession. We do not collect cards. We collect the feeling of possibility, the moment before you see what is inside. That feeling has not changed in 150 years. This is Origins. Subscribe and come back tomorrow. There's a new origin every single morning.